Hello and welcome to PS4 O'Clock. My name's Leon Hurley and this week I'm talking to Ben Wilson, editor of Official PlayStation magazine, about Sony's E3 conference. Hello, it's Leon here and I am with Ben, the editor of Official PlayStation magazine UK.
Hello.
And we are talking about obviously the big Sony conference, which was a lot of win, really, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. Massive win, very successful. But we were saying the 3 or 4 hours before the Sony one that what it needs to do is come out, reveal a competitive, if not cheaper price, show the box and announce that you'd be able to play used games on PS4. And they did all three, and that was that. Game over.
I mean, I think that's the most important things really was the price, which is £349 in the UK, and the fact that it's DRM free essentially. There's no restrictions on used games.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a lot of chaos after the Microsoft one, where Microsoft announced there's being $499, £449, and people rightly, sorry, it's £429. People rightly said, "Oh my God, that's crazy expensive, yada yada yada." And then when Sony came out at $349, it's still only $399. So, but instead of people like moaning about the exchange rate, everyone's just delighted that the console is coming out at that price. $349 in this day and age does represent pretty good value for money. That's 100 quid cheaper than an iPad. So I think the reaction was really positive. There was a point within the press conference when Jack Tretton, the president of Sony America, he had 5 or 6 sentences in a row where it was like, watching a Dwayne The Rock Johnson promo, where every sentence was like greeted by a massive cheer. And at one point, people were chanting "Sony, Sony." And I've done 3 E3s and a couple of Gamescoms, and I've never seen that level of fervour, to one single announcement in a show. It was astonishing.
Those sort of sentences where basically everything was a direct sort of attack at Microsoft, and kind of going, "We're not doing this thing Microsoft's doing. We're not doing this thing Microsoft's doing." It was just one thing after the other. Was like. Yeah. The only bit of the show really that was aggressive, where they literally pulled the gloves off and went for the competition. Yeah,
it was as close as he could get to sticking his tongue out and poking 2 fingers in there and dancing up and down without actually doing it, I think.
Which they did kind of do in Shuhei Yoshida showing you how you share your games.
Yeah, and I think for me, and I've written a reaction piece about it on the site today, I think it's probably fair to say that Microsoft had maybe a marginally better lineup of games, or certainly what they showed off was that little bit more impressive. But frankly, on next gen, the games shown off yesterday are almost irrelevant, or certainly the battle between the 2 companies to win yesterday on the games front, because the reality is a load of good games are going to come to Microsoft, both first party and third party. A load of good publishers are going to create games for the Sony console, both first party and third party. So you can guarantee whichever console you get, you're going to be catered for. Really, it's price and used games that people were going to look out for. Yeah. And on both those fronts, Sony have delivered a very definitive victory.
Yeah, so 350 quid, basically, in completely sort of unrestricted DRM second-hand games. The other thing, of course, was we actually finally got to see the box. Yeah. And to me, it reminded me a little bit of kind of PS2.
Yeah, very, very PS2-esque and losing the sort of curves, if you like, of the PS3 era. I think that's a good thing. It's the PS2 and PS1, I think, are still considered the iconic PlayStation consoles. I love PS3 as well, but that's how they'll go down in history, because PS3 didn't ever manage to quite overtake Xbox 360. But like those 2 consoles are the iconic ones, and this really has the feel, I think, now in terms of not just the ethos surrounding it, but the look of it, of going back to those halcyon days of the PS2. What did you think of like the sort of half matte, half glossy finish? That was quite intriguing and newfangled.
I think it just gives it a bit of texture, really, doesn't it? And they've obviously, part of the savings money-wise thing has come from the finish. They've gone for fairly sort of, I wouldn't say cheap plastic, but they've gone for low-cost material, should we say? And I guess that still makes it look a little kind of luxurious, having a kind of a different texture finish to it.
Mercifully, it also looks significantly smaller than the original beastie PS3, which I'm looking at on the desk right now, and you forget. I remember, like, when I first got it, I was the only one of my mates, my brothers, who had one. I used to carry it around in a rucksack, and those original PS3s are so heavy. Yeah. You might as well be carrying like a bag of bricks to work. I think they seem to have gone back to something a bit more sleeker and a bit more lightweight, and that's definitely a sensible move. Yeah,
and something that interests me actually is the amount of grills on the back. I mean, the back end of it is just all holes. Yeah. I'm guessing that all that sort of supercharged PC hardware they keep talking about is obviously going to generate a lot of heat. Yeah. Be interesting to see how much noise it makes. I mean, I'm guessing if they've got that many holes, they've got a lot of air flowing through, so you maybe won't have to have like one fan going really, really hard at it. You could just, so maybe it won't be as noisy as previous consoles.
Yeah. Well, even again going back to the last consoles, like PS3 was noisy, but the original 360 sounded like a jet engine taking off. So I think we're primed for whatever, and again, like it's it'll all come down to the price and the games you play on it eventually. I think the look's always a key thing to spot.
Yeah.
But once it's in your living room, like you don't really take much notice of it. Let's be frank.
That's it. Yeah, you interact to put the disc in, and then that's it. What about the sort of the tech side of stuff? They were kind of pushing the Vita quite hard, saying that the tech it's just at the beginning of its lifespan. They also seem to suggest as well that the Gakkai, the streaming stuff, is coming to America first, which that surprised me. I just assumed it would be like PSN; it would just sort of be switched on everywhere at once.
Yeah, I think that's slightly disappointing, but we'll live with it. I'm not saying that we should accept it forever, but Britain's always been slightly behind, and this clearly is going to be no different. I think as well the key thing is getting this infrastructure right in the first year or two. Yeah. Not for early adopters. It's another thing I said about the games is that no one's going to pay $429 to play Dead Rising 3 on Xbox. To be honest, no one's going to pay 349 quid to play NAC. Kind of. Yeah. It's about getting this stuff right over the first year or two, not the first month. And certainly, I think all the pieces are in place for Sony to do that. And it's going to be, to use a horrendous cliche, like a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. But I think they, with the tech as well as the games, they've put themselves in a decent position. Now they've got to make sure the next 24 months they capitalise on that. Yeah, that's crucially. Everyone's sort of saying it looks like a sort of Sony win for E3, but like you say, if it doesn't all work when they switch it on and people start buying them and plugging them in, then that could be a problem. So that's all got to be right and in place. And I guess obviously America, better infrastructure for sort of Gakkai, they got better sort of online connectivity. So they will probably they'll obviously get it first. What were your key games then? What were your sort of highlights? Well, as I said earlier, I didn't think it blew us away games wise, being truthful, but I don't think at this point, at this juncture, it has to. The launch lineup is strong enough and will get stronger over the first year or two. I thought Kingdom Hearts 3 looked really exciting. I know a lot of people who are really into that series. It's never one I've particularly experienced myself, but I'll certainly give it a try on next gen. Final Fantasy as well seemed to blow people away. Obviously, you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, because who knows when that will eventually come out, but it certainly looked exciting. I did find it weird, because that's basically the old one that they haven't released yet, just rebranded. Yeah. It's amazing that people just accepted that, because it's Square Enix. People go, oh, that's fine. I quite like the look of the Order 1866. Yes. Sorry, 1886. It's hard to know from that CG trailer. Yeah, but the sort of that's kind of steampunk monster hunting kind of thing looked really exciting. And I think confusingly they said it was like made by Sony Santa Monica and then Ready at Dawn as well, who's obviously those two studios have worked together on the God of War. Is it the PSP games? That well, Ready at Dawn were always a PSP studio, and I think this possibly is their first step up to full-size games, if you like. Santa Monica do operate in a kind of like parent capacity where they are like a support studio for others. So I reckon Ready at Dawn must be making it, and Santa Monica are almost like overseeing its production. Yeah. So I mean that looks exciting, and I think you have to, as you say, you have to trust that Sony Santa Monica, they make the God of War games. They're not going to put out a terrible product. So I think that'd be really intriguing. And then really, I mean, the stuff they'd already revealed, like the Shadow Falls and the infamous Second Sons, those type games, they didn't really go to town on them that much. They just sort of showed them in passing. And they announced that 3 of them, Drive Club as well as those 2 games, Drive Club, NAC and Killzone Shadowfall are all launch titles. And I think you'll see games like the EA Sports catalogue come out at launch, etc. I thought it was I don't want to say they underplayed the games, but they certainly knew where the battle was to be won for this E3, and so they basically, it was interesting, they sort of put this game out, and then they, like you said, they came out punching with the DRM news and the price, and then that was kind of a sensible tactic, because I think going in we all wanted to see an Uncharted 4 or David Cage's new game. I mean, the tech demo showed off the dots, which was impressive, but had they just focused on the games and not announced any other stuff, then maybe we'd have come away going, shit, to 6 or a 7 out of 10 conference. Ultimately, because they got the announcements right, it didn't matter that the big hitters we would have liked to be there weren't there. I don't know, because I think there's a lot of games there that maybe weren't the big hitters, but there were things like Don't Starve, Transistor, even things like Elder Scrolls Online, which may not have the sort of the big whack of the Call of Duties and the FIFAs, but by saying we've got these games, I think very sort of subtly that's quite a almost like hidden message, where they're going, we've got different and interesting games. Like I say, they may not be the ones that people rush into the shops to buy on day one, but they'll give the console more colour, and it won't be the console that just has the CODs, the FIFAs. So Microsoft was showing off all the big hitters and all the games you sort of know are coming every year, and Sony did very quietly just kind of go, and we got a lot of little interesting things that we're not waving a huge flag, but they're just there if you want them. Yeah, the indie stuff's massive. People going mad for Transistor on Twitter. I was live blogging mad for Octodad. Like I think having that wealth of content for 3, 4, 5 years, you're not going to see the fruits of that within the first 6 months, but I think that in the long term, having those so with iPad and iPhone, everyone wants those sort of piecemeal 69p games you can pick up and play, and then if you don't like them, you've wasted 69p. If you do, you get hooked on them forever. PS3 and Xbox never quite got that side of it right, and I think with this now, you'll see games. I don't think you'll see them for 69p, but you'll see those cheap games that people are self-publishing that you can just spend a couple of quid on. If you don't like them, you've only wasted a couple of quid. If you do like them, you just stay hooked to them for over the long term.
Yeah, I mean, in the past it was. I mean, PS3 traditionally, let's say when it started, and even now to some extent, it's there's the big games, the £40 kind of main retail games, and then you get your sort of £10 kind of PSN games. But with things like Don't Starve and all those little indie games, you've now got much wider ecology of everything. And I think what'll be interesting is you may not notice it at the time, but then when people look back in 6 months or a year and realise that was the week everyone talked about Transistor, and that was the week when everyone played this game for like 2 days and then forgot about it, but you'll have that much richer kind of wealth of experience.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay, so that's the main points from E3 then are £350, completely DRM free. They're still talking about the holiday 2013 release date, so hopefully it'll be in the shops by Christmas. But overall, we think good conference.
I thought very good conference. I scored it a 9 out of 10 on the CVG reaction video last night, and I stand by that score.